when you describe an account management role as, simply renewing friendly face and retaining the business, it could be like that some places. More often than not, especially if you're working at a fast growth company that has, sights set on big goals. If you simply renew your book of business at 100%, that's not your target.
Hmm.
Your target is to grow the customer base. And so customers are a great place to find new revenue. And so you're tasked with that. That's your quota.
Welcome back to the Sales Gravy Podcast. I am so excited for today's guest. We've got Reva Pellerin, a seasoned sales and account management professional with over 13 years of experience in the B2B sector, including more than 9 years at Vidyard, where she currently serves as an enterprise account manager. And in this role, she specializes in helping organizations leverage video to enhance their professional interactions, focusing on strategic accounts and enterprise growth. Her expertise lies in enabling teams to move beyond traditional platforms and use video as a powerful tool to connect with customers in a more engaging and human way. Reva, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.
I am so excited for this. I love video messaging. And I think that today's conversation is not around video messaging, but I'd love for you to kind of pull in some different strategies that you use, because you are, as of recently, the #1 enterprise account manager at Vidyard, which is a huge accomplishment. And I wanted to get your expertise on account managing. I think that there's a lot of people who might envision that account management is something where you kind of just do renewals, you have good relationships, and you smile a lot, and you're like the friendly person that everyone engages with. But I think that there's something more strategic and very tangible about the account management role that makes organizations successful. So I'm looking forward to your story and how you really bring a lot more value to your customers by the strategies that you use. But let's start with your journey. So what were some defining moments that helped you become like a top enterprise account manager, from where you started out to where you are today?
Yeah. So I think that journey wise, I think that it's done me favors to have worked at Vidyard and outside of Vidyard in net new sales. That was great. And there's a lot of overlap in being an account executive and being an account manager. And I think that what has strengthened me as an account manager is being able to run complex deal cycles. And I picked that up on the net new side. So I think that's been helpful. More specifically, though, and tangibly, I became like a true account manager 3 years ago.
Hmm.
And a couple things that really helped me was, number one, learning how to value map effectively. So it was a skill set that I read a lot about on LinkedIn. I saw enterprise sellers talking about like perspective building and coming with a hypothesis. I never felt super strong in that area. And it's something that my last leader spent a lot of time enabling our team on. And now it's like second nature. And it's something that I really try to get better at, just like discovery, being able to craft a well-informed perspective on how Vidyard is going to help this customer. So I think that is number one. It's helped me come to my customers showing like, I'm not just jumping on this call unaware, simply knowing you're a customer. I'm doing a bit more than that. I'd say that's number one. And number two, on specifically mine, everyone's going to have a different book of business, but my book of business is not small by any means. I cover a lot of accounts. And so being able to effectively tier my accounts and know which ones are going to be ones I dig into and come with a different set of skills, and which ones are going to be, not as time intensive. If you don't have that clarity, you're going to just kind of be approaching everything with the same lens, and that's not good in this role.
I think this is going to be really interesting when we get to the strategy part of how you tier and how you approach different accounts. And I think that where I want to start off is that, this does hopefully open some people's eyes to the role of an account manager, in that, there's, again, we mentioned this earlier, but maybe a lot of people maybe envision that you are approaching everything with the same kind of lens and your friendly face, and you just kind of keep the account in the business until you are renewing it at the end. But there's a lot more that goes into that leading up into the renewal period that helps you build that strategy, build a value map, and ultimately build trust with an organization and stakeholders. So when people picture an AM role, it may not be exactly what you do. So what is the real role, and what do great account managers do that actually makes them different than what people might imagine?
Yeah, I think when you describe an account management role as, simply renewing friendly face, and retaining the business, it could be like that some places. More often than not, especially if you're working at a fast growth company that has, sights set on big goals. If you simply renew your book of business at 100%, that's not your target.
Mm,
Your target is to grow the customer base. And so customers are a great place to find new revenue. And so you're tasked with that. That's your quota. So if you are simply trying to retain your book of business, you're not going to hit target. I would say that what we're actually doing differently, and especially now, I think like pre-pandemic, it might have been, people renewing technology, not really questioning, what does this tech do for us? What's the ROI? Are people creating value with it? In today's world, that is not the case.
mm.
Everything is being questioned. Even customers that have the greatest usage and like a plethora of success stories, if you have someone who is not connected to the value of what you're driving in their business, it's very easy to say, like, what is this? This is a huge line item. We're going to question it or get rid of it.
Mm.
So as an account manager, what people are doing really well is not working a renewal, 3 months ahead of time. One thing a previous leader really instilled in us was the idea of renewing early. So it was a muscle we didn't necessarily have before, but the target of, renewing at least 90 days in advance.
Mm.
And that means you're talking about renewals maybe a third or halfway through into a contract. And so that really helps you rip the Band-Aid off on if someone's saying, oh, no, we're not renewing. Now you've got 6 to 8 months to try and solve that issue, right? Whereas if you're reaching out 60 days in advance, hey, your renewal's coming up. First of all, that's not a really good experience, but you're giving yourself no opportunity to turn the tides in that scenario. So I think that's something enterprise account managers do really well. And then the other thing I'll say is it is a sales role. So building pipeline. If you're not building pipeline, right now, again, in this economy, you're probably not retaining your entire book of business at 100%. So already you are behind target. You've got to build
Yeah.
a pipeline to cover that and grow. So I would say those two things, enterprise account managers or account managers in general have a really clear idea of how they're approaching that every day and every week.
There's the 2 points that you make, which are so important to understand, is that renewing early gives you runway. It also rips that Band-Aid. And I love that you said that, because I know this, and I as a human feel this, that if there's an account and look, it was sold, right? You as an account manager get pulled into a relationship, and you kind of know that maybe the salesperson, for whatever reason, they bought this software, but it wasn't on the best foot. Like, they weren't as gung ho about it as you would hope your account would be on day one. Well, if day one is not as great as it would be, well, day 365 is going to be maybe not as good either. And so you're waiting for that rejection, and you sort of push it off until the end because you can feel it. And so you go, well, 30 days out, I'm just going to ask them for a renewal, and then they'll say yes or no, or what, and I'll just deal with it then. But what you're saying is, look, do this early so that you can build a pipeline, which is your second point, because you don't want to be 30 days out from like 16 accounts that you're trying to renew and 2 of them do. You want to know what's happening beforehand. And I wanted you to kind of highlight a point where you said you came from sales. And that's net new. And net new can be exciting because people have a problem in their business. You're helping them solve it. They see the problem. They're looking to spend their money because they want to solve that problem. But in account management, I imagine that there are relationships where they've had the product. There's not necessarily a problem there. You've solved it. Or there's problems because they're not implementing it correctly, and you're looking at 90 days out, and they're going, oh, I haven't really thought about this in however many months. Now I'm going to circle this on my P&L and say this is a big line item, like you said, and I'm questioning this, and they're already coming at it with like, how can I get rid of it rather than how do I add this back in? So how do you categorize the relationship of the salesperson and the account manager, the sales mindset of someone who's already bought the product to helping you understand how to build value from there rather than they have never heard of Vidyard before and now you're bringing them a solution? So I know that's kind of a different motion, a complex question, but are you able to kind of categorize that difference?
Yeah, I think in net new, you're often selling the vision, and then the account manager and the customer success team and that post sale team is helping the customer bring that vision to reality. And there's a lot of like things that can stand in the way of bringing that to reality. Like you mentioned, day one, relationship doesn't start off as strong as you want. There's so many other things that can happen. Day one, your champion leaves the business. That happens in net new sales. It happens right at the beginning of, your relationship with customers too. So, layoffs, a huge thing right now. You buy these licenses and the team is laid off. There's a lot of things that can be happening right now that stand in the way of the customer realizing the vision they had in mind.
Mm.
I think that one thing is leveraging your cross-functional team well and having swim lanes of who owns what. You need to work, especially with the enterprise accounts, with your customer success partner and understand who does what and what the ultimate goal of this deployment is. And then if things are going off the rails, you need to again rip the Band-Aid off and proactively address the elephant in the room. So that might look like a email to the executive sponsor. It might look like a QBR where you are not just saying, here's all the great things that are happening. This is great. This is great. But you're saying, these are the bright spots we're seeing. Here's what we're concerned about.
Mm.
And this is where we want you to be. And this is where you are today. And here are some recommendations we have on how we get you from here to there. I think they're going to appreciate much more that you identified something that's not going well. So I think it's equivalent to in sales when you say, you know what, this is what we're really good at. This is what we're not so good at. It's those disarming moments of sharing the truth. And then that shows that you're really invested in their success. And so it might look like that. It might also look like, understanding and agreeing with the customer that the deployment is not going as they thought it was. And then finding alternatives. Is there another team that can use this? Is there a training session we can do? You start to look at how do you solve this with your customer? And that's one thing I really like about account management is you get to see how it goes after the sale, and you get to be a partner to help it go better.
I want to highlight the conversation where you, I think it's a good parallel, right? If I'm selling a product as net new, I often will do the qualifying kind of conversation where, look, I after these 2-3 discovery conversations, what I've learned about your business is that we do X, Y, Z, and I think we can solve these problems for you. But here's my concern. My concern is that you are asking for these 3 things, and that's out of our wheelhouse. And what that does to a prospect is that it shows them that you are listening. It shows them that you have empathy. It shows them that you're not just trying to sell something, and you're really trying to solve a problem. And I love that it parallel to account management where you're going to that QBR and you are saying, look, these are the bright spots. Here is what we're concerned about. And I imagine there's a lot of account managers because we're people. We're selling a product. We want our company to be the best in their world. And there are bad things that might be happening just because they're not implementing it, or, we've maybe dropped the ball on a couple of things. When you say they appreciate that conversation where you are bringing truth, kind of bringing clarity, and also really listening to them, when you have endeavored on those conversations, what does it sound like? How are you presenting that so that it has that impact, but it's not, it's not a, oh, woe is me. This is going so poorly. You're like highlighting all the bad things because you don't want to do that. You do want to highlight the good things. How do you balance those 2 parts in a conversation? Like, what does that practically sound like?
Yeah. So I open kind of like a compliment sandwich. So like, this is what's going great. And we love that. Um, this is something like, so for instance, 100% of your reps signed in and accepted their invite after training. That's amazing. We usually don't see 100%, so that's amazing. We did notice, however, that only a third of people had actually created a video.
Mm.
And at this point in the implementation, we would actually expect 70 to 80%. This leads us to believe one of three things is occurring. And this is the implication if the level stays here. And so we've been here before. I might say that, like this isn't unusual, but it's something we want to flag early. This is what we can do. We can do this, we can do that, we can do that. I want to get a sense from you though, like, would you agree? Is this where you expected things to be? And then, sometimes you get that truth of like, you know what? Seasonality in our business, they're very busy right now. They're in the field and they were on Christmas holiday. So we expected everyone to do this, but actually that got in the way. In January, we're going to emphasize the importance of doing XYZ, and let's see what the levels are at in February. So you're like co-creating what we do next, and you're getting validation, because if they're like, actually, that's really great, that's what we expected, then you're like, okay, well, this is good then, right?
Never mind. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to bring that up.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how it sounds.
So when you go through the compliment sandwich, I love the way you put this, which is like, we see these things that are great. Here is what we're concerned about. This is the reasons that we think that it may be a concern. Here's how we may solve that. And then you kind of end it with, okay, again, back to bright spots and how, what we can do in the future, selling the vision again a little bit at the end of those conversations. What are some typical responses? I almost think of this like objections at the end of the sales cycle, right? Like what are some, I'm sure you get the positive responses, which are, easy to move through, but what are some of the things that you have to deal with as an account manager in those conversations where you bring the compliment sandwich and you're getting some objections? What do those sound like?
One objection may be like not loving the recommendation that we do more training, more live training,
Mhm.
because now everyone is strapped for time. And so everyone needs to be prioritizing getting in front of your customers. And so the idea that the answer is just like more training sessions, taking people out of the field, that can be something tough to swallow. And so as a brand and as a company and partner, we have to be able to meet them where they are. So Vidyard, for instance, can we do some like on-demand quick training? Can we do some quick tips through email? Just like meeting them where they are and still finding ways to move the needle, but like appreciating that your recommendations might not always fit them.
I imagine that when you are in those situations that there's a solution because your business has been around for many years and you have many customers, you have lots of experience, you do this every single day. You know that possibly that the solution is likely going to be that training. You're 98% sure that that would be the right path to walk down, and your customer is disagreeing with you, and you're saying you got to meet them where they are in the middle. What is your language that you use to sort of help smooth that conversation so that you're not, walking away after a 30, 45-minute, hour-long meeting and you're both on two different pages and you both know that? I imagine that can happen. So what is your language that you're using to sort of keep that moving down the tracks on the right direction?
Yeah, I think that I am, again, it's similar to net new sales, where you're saying, you know what, many companies I speak to right now are experiencing a similar challenge. That's the same on account management. So that is language I'm using. A lot of our customers struggle with this, where people might not want to find the time to make video, or people might be struggling with what to say on camera. In these moments, like, we find XYZ really works well. One thing that works well, and it puts the onus on both of us, is we need to find, like, you might again have a hypothesis of why you bought Vidyard. You might think like, oh, we're going to build pipeline with it. But then as it gets implemented on your team, you are surprised to find, oh, actually, people are finding a lot of success using it for this use case instead. So understanding together, like, how is your team actually using Vidyard, and identifying what use cases are moving the needle for them. And then mandating those use cases. That's what I find really helpful. And so I might share that with them. We don't want you to mandate anything that you don't have conviction in. So step one is let's understand how Vidyard moves the needle for your team. And once we have conviction in that, step two is now as a manager, a leader, a sales enablement partner, you can say, you know what? We have all these proof points that reps who use Vidyard like this drive this result. We want everyone doing that. And it's more mandated. I think, just as an aside, sales tech has become very bloated. Everyone has like between 10 and 15 tools they can use. And unless your leaders can tell you prescriptively, this is why we use this tool and these are the results it drives, and here are examples of it working, then of course you're just going to kind of approach it as, if you want to use it, you can. And if you don't, you don't have to. And that's not going to create good ROI out of your investment. So, but it's not easy to do. Like we've got to work together to identify what works, document success, and then replicate it across the team.
I like the way that you in those conversations might reframe the outcome. So they bought the product and we want to build pipeline with this service. We want to build with Vidyard, we want to build pipeline. Well, you're 30, 45 days in, pipeline hasn't really moved above the average. Like there's not a statistical difference in what's happening. But you as the account manager might say, well, 30% of your reps are only 30% of your reps are actually sending videos. Where are they sending videos? And they might be sending it halfway through the sales process. And you go, look, I have a hypothesis. Why don't we take a look at the results that they're getting in their sales process? Maybe it's moving the needle there. So, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, why don't we reframe the outcome that we're looking for? You said pipeline when you bought this product, but as your account manager, why don't we look at some other outcomes and see if we can accelerate growth in other areas with this product? And you reframe the outcome that they're looking for with them in that room so they feel buy into it. And then they're convicted to go maybe implement training in a different way than they thought previously. And I think that's a really great strategy for helping you deepen your relationship with a customer. And I want to go back to the beginning when you have a new customer and as you're building your strategy, what are some of the pieces that you put into place to help you understand where to grow inside of an account? Day one, you're looking at an account and it's a large manufacturing group, and they have 400 salespeople across the country, and they're implementing Vidyard. How do you start to understand their business so that you can say, in 60 days when I come to that renewal conversation, or 6 months when I come to that renewal conversation, I'm gonna pick 4 lanes and we're going to try and help them implement it in their service department or their customer success department or their maybe even their customer acquisition team to deal with procurement and that kind of stuff. So how do you start to map out where you're going to go in an account?
This is a key way I grow in my accounts. And so I will focus, in terms of mapping it and understanding it, I'm working with the people that I work with most closely. So let's say we, like a net new rep, landed a deal in the acquisition side of the house, but there is, account management, customer success. I am working first and foremost with my stakeholders in that group to create successful outcomes. Because as an account manager, one of the tools we have to pipeline development is internal proof points of success. And so I'm not saying, a customer in a similar industry did X. I'm actually saying your acquisition team is doing S with Vidyard. So that's my step one in pipeline development, is creating successful outcomes. And when I'm understanding from my own research, Sales Navigator, for instance, as well as my stakeholder, what do other teams look like and how do those teams work with your acquisition team? And here's what I think they might be experiencing or struggling with. Do you think that's valid? And they might say, yeah, I'm not really close to them. I don't know. And that's fine. But I'm prospecting either through warm introductions or from binding leaders on Sales Nav, and I'm shopping that success story around. And so I'm taking a perspective of if I'm going after account management, I'm saying, this is how we work with your acquisition team today. I know you lead account management. I'm assuming you are working on XYZ. Although they're using Vidyard this way, this is how I think you could use it. So that's one way. Another way is if you are a PLG company, finding users in that team that you're not yet working with and understanding why they use Vidyard.
Yeah.
So documenting that success story and then shopping that around. So saying, teams on or reps on your team are trying to solve this problem. They're using video to do that. Here are some things they're doing with it. Is it worth a conversation? So those are a couple ways I am like mapping expansion teams out and then approaching those teams.
It sounds like you're listening for maybe hiccups in the process. So you say you're working with a big sales team, right? And they're landing great new revenue. You've got proof cases with Vidyard that they're accelerating their pipeline, they're accelerating their sales process. And you talk to the sales leader and you might say something like, hey, tell me about your retention rate of your customers. And the sales leader might go, well, we're not retaining more than 50% of our customers, and it's because the account management team isn't doing X, Y. They're kind of giving those complaints a little bit. And then you can go to the account management team and say, hey, I heard that there are some challenges when it comes to the transition from the new sale to your account management team. I have a way that we can smooth that transition with video that gives the customer more trust in that transition and helps your retention rate by 12% year over year. And that account management team might go, yeah, well, we're interested in having that conversation. So you're prospecting with inside of the company information to other parts of the company, and it's a building pipeline like you're a net new sales rep, but for the same company that you're in. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, and I'm also leveraging, the research points you're probably leveraging in the AE side. So are they hiring in that area? Are they hiring account managers? Are they hiring a new leader? Does SalesNap tell me someone has just joined the company 3 months ago? You're looking at all those signals. It's not so different. So again, going back to your original question of like, is it just simply renewing? It really isn't. It is sales, but you're renewing as well.
You're keeping what you have, but then
Yeah.
you're expanding into the rest of the organization. And I think that you talked about building pipeline, how important that is as an account manager, that you're talking about renewals early. So your runway and what's happening in January when you're in October, so that January is not a big surprise. And you have a quota and you don't want to have a bad month. So you're looking at your pipeline going out. And if you have a bad month, it's likely because 60, 90 days in advance, you weren't doing the work that you should have been doing. The same way in sales, if you're not prospecting 90 days later, you are going to have a bad month. That's typically a rule in sales. But I know that in sales, we talk about qualifying and then getting disqualified deals out of your pipeline quickly. So walking away from the bad deal as quickly as you can, because nothing's worse than spending a lot of time with someone who's never going to buy from you. But as an account manager, I know that there are times when you are looking at that 90-day renewal, you're doing all the work, and you have an inkling that this just isn't gonna you're writing this off in January. This customer's not coming back. What are the red flags that you look for when you're in your account management role that help you understand your book of business and who's going to leave, and maybe who you should spend a little bit less time with because of XYZ factors? What are some rules of thumb that you have?
One thing I think is really critical in account management, sales in general, and like any given time of my fiscal year, I have a finger on the pulse of which accounts of mine are a churn risk. And so from there, I am doing like quick back of the napkin math to understand the impact on mine. Like we measure net retention at Vidyard. So you have to not just retain, but grow. That's our net retention target. And so I'm doing quick math on if that renewal churned tomorrow, would it have a material impact on my NRR? Because that's first what I am like, what I owe my business as a sales rep. And so if it's non-strategic and I see the place that I could recoup the loss, I'm going to index my time accordingly. That's number one. So I've had, some significant renewals that were at risk. They were acquired, massive acquisitions in their space, and it created muddy waters, but it was a non-negotiable for me. I could not lose that deal. And so I worked, 7 or 8 months on it with my customer success manager, putting out a ton of time. It was almost like it became a massive net new deal we had to win. That's how it registered in my head. And so there's going to be those where you're like, we can't afford to lose it. And in that case, your entire ELT team is involved. It's not just you working it. But then there's going to be those little tiny run rate ones where you're like, I could separate from this. Now, then you have to ask yourself, is there a quick answer to this? Like, am I just engaged with the wrong person? If I raise this to like an executive on their side, do I think I have a compelling reason why they should keep Vidyard? And if you do, then you've gotta like do the work to make that happen. If it's like, you look at the data and you're seeing really great usage, but they're not driving value, then you know what you need to do. Or if you're seeing the usage is really low, then you know what you need to do. So you need to like look at the data, analyze it on, is this a critical deal for me to win or not? And then take action accordingly.
I think that I want to wrap this up with what you started the conversation with, which was strategically tiering your accounts. And we just talked about where you spend your time, some red flags you should look for. But I think this is probably the thing. I don't know what you would say would make you the number one account manager at an enterprise account manager at Vidyard. But this tiered strategy, walk people through your process as quickly as you can to kind of illustrate what differentiates you from the rep that is taking it day by day.
Yeah. So I think if you're not tiering your accounts, you're approaching everything with the same paintbrush and it's going to do you no favors. You're kind of working at the mercy of like what's coming to you versus having a proactive plan. That's something my former leader taught me. And it's not just tiering it once, like doing it once and then like leaving it. It's tiering it on a regular basis, kind of just checking in on, is that the right place for that account to be? So I have like 4 tier segments that I look at my book of business from. The strategic accounts and my key accounts are ones where I'm saying they do this much with us today, but based on my research, product-led growth intent signals, people we know in the account, times that they have evaluated us in the past, they should be doing so much more. Those are the accounts where I am working, 40 to 50% on those. I am prospecting, I am researching, I'm doing warm introductions. I'm getting on those like QBRs, the monthly calls. Then you have your like transactional accounts, which are not important, but you have to find run rate revenue there. And you have to leverage your cross-functional partners like business development reps to help you find quick wins. So if you're not tiering your accounts and then referring back and moving things around based on how things are going in your fiscal year, you take a more reactive position and you're kind of just putting out fires and trying your best with no real strategy to it.
I love this conversation. You have so much knowledge around this. We could talk for 4 more hours about how you have leveraged your skill set as both a seller and an account manager to grow relationships and grow business for your business. And I think that I want to give you one last section to talk about, if you were starting over, completely starting over as an account manager, what were 3 things that you would tell yourself 9 years ago, 3 years ago, before starting out?
Oh, I would say, well, okay. The first thing I would like always like try to get better and better at is discovery. Really trying to get to the heart of like why it's important, why they're working on it, why they're trying to solve it. And I think it's that skill set that like you never fully master. You're great at it, but like you can always get better. Discovery is critical. Um, Really learning how to write effective outbound messaging. It's something I'm still working on. And it's actually like a goal of mine this year to significantly improve my outbound messaging. So I think that's critical as well. And then I think like the ability to wrap your arms around doing research to come with an informed opinion, um, slowing down and not just doing mass spray and pray, and thinking about like why would a customer want to take that call with you. That would probably be another area. I say master it early and it will do you well in the future.
Words of truth from Reva. Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Where can people follow you and learn more from you as they leave this podcast and are interested in following you to see how they can be successful in your path?
Yeah, my LinkedIn is the best place.
Lovely. Well, we'll link your LinkedIn, and everyone go follow Reva. She's a wonderful, wonderful thought leader in the space. And that's how I found her, was via LinkedIn, because she posts really awesome things that you should take advantage of because they're on the internet and they're free. But we thank you so much for being on the Sales Gravy podcast. We'll catch you next time, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to click like and subscribe so you never miss a single video. And if you want more sales training content, go to learn.salesgravy.com.